Mark stood in the doorway of his condo, keys still in hand, staring at empty space where furniture had been 3 days ago. Everything was gone: television, couch, bed, even the curtains. The windows exposed dust outlines where his possessions used to exist. His phone showed 17 missed calls from his landlord. "Your girlfriend took everything. She had van and 3 men. You owe me for broken lock." He checked his banking app with shaking hands. The account showed $87. 3 days ago, before his visa run to Cambodia, it had shown $22,000, the last of his money from selling his HVAC business in Austin. Namwan had access to the account. He had given her the card and PIN 2 months ago when she said her mother needed emergency surgery, when he had felt like a hero providing security to this sweet young woman who had made his late 50s feel like a second chance at youth. He tried calling her. The number was disconnected. He tried messaging online, blocked. He tried Facebook. Her account had been deleted, or she had blocked him there too. He tried the bar where she worked, but the mamasan who answered said Namwan hadn't worked there in 2 weeks, hadn't told anyone she was leaving, and no, she didn't have any contact information to share. Mark sat on the floor of his empty condo as the sun set, turning the room orange, then gray, then dark. He was 56 years old, in a foreign country with a tourist visa that would expire in 60 days, with $87 to his name. No furniture, no one to call for help, and the crushing realization that the woman he had loved, genuinely loved, had planned a future with, had been methodically preparing to rob him blind from the day they met. This is a story about how loneliness creates vulnerability, how hope blinds us to obvious warning signs, how the bar girl trap in Thailand operates with such efficiency that thousands of foreign men fall into it annually, each one believing his situation is different, his bar girl is special, his love is real. This is a story about Mark Reynolds, who came to Thailand to start over and ended up with nothing, and about Namwan, who saw him not as a person, but as a resource to be extracted completely before moving to the next opportunity. If you've been enjoying the stories I create, please consider hitting the subscribe button. Your support is crucial for the growth of this channel and helps me dedicate time to making these videos despite my commitment to a full-time job. Thank you for being here. Mark Reynolds spent 32 years building his HVAC business in Austin, Texas. His marriage lasted 24 years before dissolving, not dramatic, just the gradual recognition that he and Sarah had built a life together without building affection. The divorce was civil, expensive, and emotionally devastating. After selling the business and settling with Sarah, Mark had approximately $150,000. His children suggested he invest conservatively, but Mark was 56 alone and facing decades in Austin where every street reminded him of failure. Thailand appeared through YouTube videos and expat blogs, testimonials of men who claimed happiness in Southeast Asia after their American dreams collapsed. The message was seductive. Thailand was cheap. Thai women appreciated older Western men. Life could feel purposeful again. Mark watched these videos obsessively, heard phrases like quality of life, respect for elders, traditional values, uncomplicated romance, and he wanted to believe every word. He wanted to believe that his age wasn't a disability, that his savings could purchase comfort and companionship, that escape was possible, that starting over at 56 in a foreign country was brave rather than desperate. 3 months after his divorce finalized, Mark boarded a plane to Bangkok with 2 suitcases, a 60-day tourist visa, and a plan that was more hope than strategy. He told his children he was taking an extended vacation, didn't tell them he had sold most of his possessions, didn't tell them he was bringing $70,000 in accessible funds, with the rest invested back in the US for emergencies. His children didn't ask many questions. They were busy. And he had never been good at emotional conversations, had never learned how to tell them he was lonely, without it sounding like accusation. In American culture, we teach men that success means financial security and emotional restraint, that vulnerability is weakness, that asking for help is failure. Mark had absorbed these lessons completely, had built a business while his emotional life collapsed, had reached his mid-50s with money, but without tools to articulate the loneliness that had become his constant companion. Thailand promised him a restart, a place where his isolation could be solved through simpler transactions, where affection could be purchased without the complex emotional labor that Western relationships required. He believed this promise because he desperately needed it to be true. Mark spent his first 2 weeks in Bangkok feeling overwhelmed. He moved to Pattaya on expat recommendations, smaller, more manageable, designed for foreigners. He rented a condo in Pratamnak for 12,000 baht monthly and spent 3 days exploring as a tourist. But the evenings were lonely. On his fourth evening, he walked to Beach Road where beer bars clustered. He chose Sexy Girls Bar. Almost randomly, 6 women sitting outside looking bored. When he sat down, 3 surrounded him immediately, asking his name, where he was from, whether he liked Thai women. He bought drinks, lady drinks, at inflated prices. One woman was quieter than the others, sitting slightly apart. Her name tag said Namwan, and when Mark asked if she would sit with him, she seemed genuinely pleased. Namwan spoke limited English but asked simple questions and listened with attention that felt real. She told him she was from Buriram, had a daughter being raised by her parents, did this work to support her family. The directness about her work made her seem more real than women who constructed elaborate fictions. When the bar closed, Namwan's mama-san asked if he wanted to take Namwan out bar fine of 500 baht. Mark hesitated. Namwan said quietly, "We can just talk. I like talk with you. You are kind." He paid the bar fine. They walked along Beach Road together, Namwan's hand finding his naturally, her body close enough that he could smell her perfume, something floral and sweet that would become, over the following months, the scent he associated with hope. In Thai culture, particularly in the bar industry of Pattaya, we have learned to perform innocence with tremendous skill. The shyness, the gentle demeanor, the suggestion of being different from other bar girls, these are calculated presentations designed to trigger rescue fantasies in foreign men. We understand that many men come to Thailand not seeking prostitutes but seeking girlfriends, not wanting explicit transactions, but wanting relationships that feel authentic even if they begin in commercial context. The successful bar girls aren't those who are most sexually aggressive, but those who best perform potential, who make men believe they're saving a good girl from bad circumstances, who transform commercial transactions into rescue narratives that allow men to feel heroic rather than transactional. Namwan came back to Mark's condo that first night, and they talked until dawn. She told him her story, a story he would later realize was standard template, carefully constructed to elicit sympathy and financial support without triggering suspicion. She was from Buriram, she said, a poor province in Isan, where rice farming provided barely enough income to survive. Her father had died when she was 12, motorcycle accident, the most common rural tragedy. Her mother struggled to maintain the small farm alone, and Namwan, as the eldest of 3 children, felt obligated to help. She had come to Pattaya 6 months ago, worked in the bar because jobs for young women without education were limited to factories, restaurants, or the sex industry, and the bar paid better with more flexible hours. She hated the work, she said. Hated the drunk foreign men who grabbed her. Hated the mamasans who pressured her to go with customers. Hated feeling ashamed when she video called her mother and lied about working in a restaurant. She was saving money to go home, to maybe start a small shop in her village, to escape this life before it destroyed something essential in her. Mark listened to this story and felt his heart expand with protective instinct. Here was this sweet young woman, trapped by circumstances beyond her control, trying to help her family through the only means available. She wasn't a prostitute, not really. She was a daughter making sacrifices, a girl who had been forced into this work by poverty and limited options. When he asked how much she made at the bar, she said some nights she made nothing. Other nights, maybe 2,000 baht if customers bought many lady drinks and if someone took her out and gave her money afterward. On average, maybe 20,000 baht per month, she said. Less than $500. From this, She sent 15,000 home to her mother and kept the rest for her small room rental and food. Mark did the math quickly. He could give her 15,000 baht per month, less than $400, and she could quit the bar, wouldn't have to go with strange men, could spend time with him instead. He suggested this cautiously, not wanting to offend, framing it as helping her rather than hiring her. Namwan's eyes filled with tears, real tears, or tears so skillfully performed that they appeared real. She said she couldn't accept such generosity, that it was too much, that she barely knew him, Mark insisted. He told her he wasn't buying her, he was helping her, that maybe they could build something genuine if she had time to spend with him without the pressure of bar work. She agreed, but only after appropriate resistance, only after asking multiple times if he was sure, only after extracting his promise that this was help rather than payment, that he saw her as person rather than transaction. The next day, Mark went to the bar to pay 1 month advance to the mama-san compensation for losing Namwan's services. This cost him 20,000 baht, a finder's fee of sorts. The mama-san smiled, counted the money carefully, and said Mark was very lucky, that Namwan was good girl, not like other girls who just wanted money. This endorsement from someone who ran the bar and presumably knew validated Mark's belief that he had found something special. For the next 2 months, Namwan essentially moved into Mark's condo. She would go home to her room occasionally for clothes or to maintain the appearance of independence, but mostly she stayed with him. She cooked Thai meals, kept the condo clean, watched movies with him in the evenings, slept curled against him at night, woke him with coffee in the mornings. She was attentive in ways that felt genuine, remembering how he liked his eggs, buying him small gifts with the allowance money he gave her, asking about his day, his health, his feelings. She learned basic English phrases to communicate better, taught him Thai words for food and feelings, laughed at his terrible pronunciation without making him feel stupid. Mark fell in love. Not gradually, but completely. The way lonely people fall in love when someone finally provides the attention they've been craving. He started thinking about long-term plans, maybe buying a small house somewhere quieter than Pattaya, maybe marrying Namwan properly, maybe bringing her to America eventually, though the visa process would be complicated. He met some of her friends from the bar, other girls who had similar arrangements with foreign men, who spoke about their boyfriends with what seemed like genuine affection. He met the mama-san again socially, at a dinner Namwan organized, and she toasted Mark and said he was good man, that Namwan was lucky girl, that she hoped they would be happy together. Everything pointed toward authenticity. The only concerning elements were small things Mark chose to ignore. Namwan's phone that she kept face down and checked frequently, her occasional requests for additional money beyond the monthly allowance for family emergencies that seemed to occur regularly, her vagueness about her life before Pattaya, her insistence that she couldn't introduce him to her family yet, because her mother was traditional and would need time to accept a foreign boyfriend. But these concerns were easy to dismiss when balanced against the warmth she provided, the companionship that made his days feel purposeful, the physical intimacy that reminded him he was still capable of being desired. Mark chose to see what he wanted to see, filtered Namwan's behavior through his need for her to be genuine, constructed a narrative where he was the hero and she was the rescued maiden, and their relationship was the happy ending both deserved. 3 months into their relationship, Namwan's mother became sick. This was the story Namwan told Mark through tears, showing him a video call with an older Thai woman lying in bed looking weak, speaking in Thai that Mark couldn't understand but that sounded urgent, frightened. The mother needed surgery, Namwan said. Gallbladder problems that had been getting worse for months. The cost would be 80,000 baht, about $2,300. The family had no savings, no way to pay, and without surgery, the doctor said her mother might die. Mark didn't hesitate. He gave Namwan 90,000 baht, enough for surgery, plus buffer for unexpected costs. She cried, held him tightly, said she didn't deserve someone so kind, that she would find a way to repay him someday. He told her repayment wasn't necessary, that this was what people did for those they loved, that her mother's health was more important than money. A week later, Namwan showed him photos of her mother in a hospital bed, looking better, recovering from surgery. She showed him a receipt in Thai that Mark couldn't read, but that showed numbers and hospital letterhead that seemed legitimate. She was effusive in her gratitude, more affectionate than ever, talking about their future together in ways that made Mark's heart swell with hope. But then her brother needed money for a business opportunity, a chance to buy a small food cart that could generate income for the family. 10,000 baht. Not much, but it would help her family become independent, wouldn't have to rely on her sending money every month. Mark gave her 12,000 extra to ensure the business started well. Then her younger sister needed money for nursing school registration. Then the rice farm needed a new pump. Then there was a village ceremony that required the family to contribute money or lose face in the community. Each request was small enough to seem reasonable, large enough to accumulate into significant sums, infrequent enough not to trigger obvious alarm. Over 4 months, beyond the monthly allowance of 15,000 baht, Mark gave Namwan approximately 150,000 baht for various family emergencies. His savings depleted faster than planned, but he told himself this was temporary investment in their future. Namwan suggested moving to a nicer condo, 2 bedrooms in North Pattaya, 25,000 baht monthly. Mark paid 3 months advance plus deposit 100,000 baht. They spent 60,000 on furniture and electronics, Namwan handling purchases while Mark provided his credit card. 5 months into their relationship, Mark's savings had decreased from $70,000 to approximately 35,000. But he had built what felt like a life, a home, a relationship, daily routine with companionship and purpose. Namwan began talking about building a house in Buriram, showing him photos of her family's land. She showed him plans for a simple 2-bedroom house, estimated cost around 800,000 baht. Mark started thinking seriously about cashing out US investments to fund construction. In Thai culture, particularly in relationships between Thai women and foreign men, the house construction narrative is one of the most common and effective extraction schemes. The foreign man is told his girlfriend's family has land, that building a house would provide security and demonstrate commitment, that the construction cost is reasonable. Money is given incrementally for foundation, walls, roof, finishing. Photos are sent showing construction progress, sometimes real houses being built for other people, sometimes houses that will never belong to the foreign man regardless of who funds them. By the time the foreign man realizes he has no legal ownership, that Thai law prevents foreigners from owning land, that his name appears nowhere on documents, that his girlfriend can sell the property at any time he has invested too much to walk away without admitting complete foolishness. 6 months into their relationship, Mark made 2 decisions that would prove catastrophic. First, he added Namwan to his Thai bank account. Second, he told her he needed to do a visa run to Cambodia to renew his tourist visa and would be gone for 3 days. The bank account decision happened gradually. Namwan had been buying groceries and household items with cash Mark gave her. But it was inconvenient. She would need to ask him for money regularly. He would need to ensure he had cash available. The transactions felt transactional in ways that bothered him. It seemed more efficient to give her a card linked to his account, let her purchase what they needed without asking permission each time. Mark went to Bangkok Bank and added her as a joint account holder, giving her a debit card and the PIN. He transferred about $30,000, approximately 1 million baht, into this Thai account, keeping the rest of his money in US accounts for safety. This million baht would be their living expenses for the next year, he calculated, plus buffer for emergencies. Namwan was effusive in her gratitude, said this showed he trusted her completely, that she would never abuse this trust, that this made her feel like they were truly a couple building a life together. She cried genuine seeming tears, held him tightly, said she loved him for the first time since they met, a declaration that made Mark feel like all his investments, financial and emotional, had been justified. The visa run was necessary but inconvenient. Mark's 60-day tourist visa had been extended once for 30 days, and now he needed to leave Thailand and re-enter to get another 60 days. Many expats made regular border runs, quick trips to Cambodia or Laos or Malaysia, exiting Thailand and immediately returning, gaming, the system that technically allowed continuous tourist visas, but was beginning to crack down on obvious abuse. Mark booked a bus tour to Poipet on the Cambodia border, leave early morning, cross the border, turn around immediately, return to Pattaya by evening. The tour company said it was safe, simple, that thousands of foreigners did it monthly. Namwan seemed upset that he was leaving, even for just a day. She said she would miss him, that the condo would feel empty without him, that he should hurry back. Mark was touched by her apparent attachment, promised to call her from the border, told her to use the bank card for anything she needed while he was gone. He left at 5 a.m. on a Tuesday, taking only a small backpack with his passport and some cash. He expected to be back by 10 p.m. at the latest. The border crossing was chaotic, long lines, aggressive visa agents trying to scam tourists, confusion about which windows to approach for stamps. Mark stood in the heat for hours, inching forward slowly, getting his exit stamp from Thailand, crossing into Cambodia, immediately turning around for re-entry to Thailand. The Thai immigration officer looked at his passport skeptically. Too many tourist stamps, too many border runs, the pattern of someone trying to live in Thailand without proper visa. She questioned him in broken English about his intentions, his employment, his income source. After 40 minutes of interrogation and apparent consultation with supervisors, she stamped his passport but wrote a warning in Thai that Mark couldn't read. Told him this was his last border run. Next time, he needed proper visa if he wanted to stay in Thailand. Mark was shaken by the experience, worried about his legal status, relieved to be back in Thailand, but aware that his simple plan of continuous tourist visas was no longer viable. He would need to figure out proper visa options, education visa, retirement visa, marriage visa, perhaps if he and Namwan reached that point. He arrived back in Pattaya at 11 p.m., exhausted, sweaty, eager to see Namwan and sleep in his own bed. He took a motorbike taxi from the bus station to his condo building, climbed the stairs to his floor, unlocked his door, and walked into empty space. For several minutes, Mark stood in the doorway, convinced he had entered the wrong condo. But the layout was correct. His key had worked. The space was undeniably his apartment, stripped of everything that had made it recognizable. He walked through rooms that echoed, seeing absence where furniture had been, blank walls where the television had hung, empty kitchen counters where the rice cooker and microwave had Saturday. The bedroom was particularly devastating, not just the bed gone, but the closet empty of his clothes, the bathroom stripped of toiletries, even his medications missing from the cabinet. She had taken everything, including items that belonged to him. Items she had no possible use for, except perhaps to sell or to ensure his complete helplessness. Mark tried calling Namwan. The number was disconnected. He tried line blocked. He tried Facebook, found her account deleted or made invisible. He sat on the floor where his couch used to be, trying to process what had happened, his mind moving slowly through shock toward the terrible realization of what this meant. His phone rang. The landlord, angry, asking where Mark had been, saying his girlfriend had come with a truck, and 3 men 2 days ago had taken everything, including the landlord's furniture that had been in the condo when Mark rented it, had damaged the door when leaving, and now Mark owed for repairs and replacement furniture. Mark tried to explain that Namwan wasn't authorized to remove anything, that this was theft, but the landlord said Mark had given her the key, had been living with her, that his tenant problems weren't the landlord's concern beyond the damages owed. 3,000 baht for the broken lock, 15,000 for the furniture replacement, payment expected immediately, or legal action would follow. Mark hung up, checked his banking app with trembling hands, entered his password multiple times before getting it right, waited for the account to load, saw the number that confirmed his complete ruin. $87. Approximately 3,000 baht. Less than the cost of replacing the landlord's lock. Namwan had withdrawn everything. Over the past 3 days. Systematic withdrawals. 200,000 baht, 200,000, 300,000, 200,000, 85,000. Nearly 1 million baht removed in 5 separate transactions over 2 days, leaving only the minimum amount that couldn't be withdrawn from the ATM's daily limit. Mark scrolled through the transaction history with growing horror, seeing not just the recent withdrawals but the past month's expenses, suddenly making sense large purchases he didn't remember authorizing, transfers to accounts he didn't recognize, spending that Namwan had apparently been doing secretly, while still asking him for additional money for family emergencies. She had been planning this for weeks, possibly months. The move to the more expensive condo, the furniture purchases, the increasing family emergency requests, all of it had been systematically extracting his money while positioning her for the final theft. Giving her access to his bank account hadn't been the mistake that enabled the theft. It had been the final step in a long con that had started the night he met her at the bar. Mark spent that first night on the floor of his empty condo, using his backpack as a pillow, sleeping fitfully while his mind replayed 6 months of memories that now seemed like evidence collection, red flags he had chosen to ignore. Moments when Namwan had revealed exactly what she was doing if only he had been willing to see. Her phone always face down, her reluctance to introduce him to her family, the increasing frequency of money requests, the way she had encouraged the expensive condo move, her insistence on handling the furniture purchases alone, the timing of her emotional declaration of love right after he gave her access to his bank account, her tears about his visa run, which he had interpreted as affection but which had probably been performance, ensuring he didn't suspect anything while she arranged the robbery. He remembered Trevor, the expat who had introduced him to the agency in his previous life, warning him, "Don't fall in love. These girls are professionals." But Namwan hadn't been from an agency, she was a bar girl, which he had somehow believed was different, more authentic, less calculated. He thought about the photos she had shown him, her sick mother in the hospital, her brother's food cart, her family's rice farm where they would supposedly build a house together. He realized he had no way to verify any of it had been real. The mother might exist, might have been sick, or might have been an actress Namwan hired to perform illness on video call. The family emergencies might have been real or might have been fiction, designed to extract money beyond the monthly allowance. It didn't matter now. What mattered was that he was 56 years old, in a foreign country, with $87, no furniture, no possessions except what he had carried in his backpack to Cambodia, and no clear path forward. In the morning, he would have to figure out next steps, contact the police, though he doubted they would help, contact his bank, though the withdrawals had been made with his card and PIN, so technically authorized, contact the American embassy to see if they offered any support for citizens robbed by Thai partners, contact his children who would be disappointed but perhaps willing to wire emergency money. But for now, in the dark, empty condo with traffic sounds bleeding through walls that no longer had curtains to muffle them, Mark sat with a crushing realization that loneliness had made him stupid, that hope had blinded him to obvious manipulation, that the bar girl trap everyone warned about had caught him completely despite his belief that he was smarter, that his situation was different, that his bar girl was special. In Thai culture, we have a term, Farang Ki Nok bird shit foreigner. It refers to foreign men who are easy targets, who arrive in Thailand believing themselves sophisticated, but who prove laughably naive about how the bar industry operates. We don't say this term to foreigners directly. It would be rude, would violate the hospitality and politeness that defines Thai social interaction. But among ourselves, among the women who work in bars and the families who depend on their income, we acknowledge that some foreign men are simply easier to extract money from than others. The bird shit foreigners are those who fall in love too quickly, who believe sob stories too readily, who give bank account access too willingly, who mistake performed affection for genuine emotion. Mark had been perfect bird shit foreigner kind. Lonely, generous, naive, desperate to believe, willing to ignore warning signs because admitting them would require admitting his loneliness had made him foolish. Mark filed a police report, but the officer's response was, "This is girlfriend problem, not police problem." The withdrawals were technically authorized. This was civil matter, and pursuing it would cost money he didn't have. The American embassy was sympathetic but limited. They could arrange an emergency loan for a flight home, suggested contacting family. They couldn't recover his stolen money. He called his daughter Jessica. The conversation was painful, her disappointment, her thinly veiled "I told you so" about Thailand. She agreed to wire $3,000, enough to return to the US and survive for a month. But she made clear this was a one-time rescue, that he needed to come home. Mark used Jessica's money to pay the landlord and book a flight leaving in 2 weeks. During those final days, he walked through Pattaya seeing the city differently, every smile calculated, every interaction scripted, the whole city organized around extracting money from lonely foreign men. He tried to find Namwan, but most claimed not to know where she went. One drunk girl told Mark that Namwan had been laughing about him at the bar, had bragged about how much she took, had said foreigners were easy money. The night before his flight, Mark sat in his empty condo trying to reconcile the past 6 months with reality. He had come to Thailand hoping to start over. Instead, he was returning more alone than before, financially devastated, carrying shame. He thought about what he could have done differently. The obvious answer was everything. He could have not given her money beyond reasonable support. He could have not added her to his bank account. He could have verified her stories about family emergencies. He could have listened to warning signs instead of dismissing them. He could have protected himself emotionally and financially instead of investing everything in a relationship that was always going to end this way. But the deeper answer was more painful. His loneliness had made him willing to believe anything that promised to end his isolation. Thailand hadn't created his vulnerability. His vulnerability had brought him to Thailand. The bar girl trap existed because men like Mark arrived desperately seeking affection, willing to pay for it, needing to believe it was real even when evidence suggested otherwise. Namwan was a professional, doing what professionals in her industry do, identifying vulnerable clients, establishing trust, maximizing extraction, moving to the next opportunity before the client realizes they've been played. Mark had been an easy target because he wanted so badly to believe he had found love that he ignored the mechanics of the transaction, mistook skilled labor for spontaneous affection, convinced himself that what he was purchasing was somehow exempt from the rules that governed every other commercial transaction in Pattaya. Mark arrived in Austin in early evening, took a bus to a cheap motel where Jessica had arranged a 1-week reservation. He was 56 with approximately $1,000 remaining. His children were disappointed. He had no job, no home, no partner, no clear path forward. Jessica visited the next day. She offered temporary housing. He could stay in her garage apartment for 3 months while he rebuilt, but he would need to find work. Mark accepted, having no alternatives. He applied for jobs, but his age and employment gap made him undesirable. He eventually found minimum wage work at a hardware store. At night, in his garage apartment, he scrolled through photos of Namwan, unable to delete evidence that for 6 months he had felt happy. 3 years later, Mark had accumulated $15,000 in savings, moved into his own rental, developed a stable routine. His life wasn't what he dreamed, no grand romance, no comfortable retirement, but it was real in ways his Thailand relationship never had been. He sometimes wondered what happened to Namwan, whether she was still in Pattaya working the bar scene, whether she had found another foreign man to extract money from, whether she ever thought about him or felt any guilt for the devastation she had caused. He suspected she didn't, that from her perspective, she had simply done her job well, had identified a vulnerable client and maximized her extraction before moving to the next opportunity, that he was one among many foreign men who had funded her family's survival through their naive belief that purchased affection could become real love. In the end, Mark's story was neither unique nor particularly tragic in the context of Pattaya's bar industry every week. Similar stories played out with different actors, different details, same essential mechanics. Lonely foreign men arrived seeking affection, met professional performers who provided exactly what was needed to maintain investment, lost varying amounts of money before reality intervened, returned home, carrying shame and financial loss and painful education about the difference between what can be purchased and what can only be given freely. The bar girl trap in Thailand exists not because Thai women are uniquely mercenary, but because the industry has evolved over decades to efficiently monetize Western male loneliness. The trap works not through coercion, but through offering exactly what lonely men are seeking: affection, admiration, physical intimacy, domestic partnership, at prices that seem reasonable compared to the emotional and financial costs of relationships in Western countries. Mark's fundamental error wasn't in seeking companionship in Thailand, but in believing that what he was purchasing could transcend its commercial origins. He wanted to believe that Namwan's affection was spontaneous rather than professional, that her care was personal rather than occupational, that their relationship existed in a category separate from the bar industry that had brought them together. But Namwan was doing her job, and she did it exceptionally well. The shyness that had attracted him was performed modesty, designed to trigger rescue fantasies. The stories about her family were templates refined through years of industry experience, calculated to elicit sympathy and financial support. The cooking and cleaning and physical affection were skilled labor, professional services delivered with the competence that made them feel authentic. The tears, the declarations of feeling, the apparent vulnerability, these were tools of her trade, techniques that worked because they exploited the specific loneliness that brought foreign men to Pattaya. This doesn't make Namwan a villain. She was a young woman from a poor region with limited economic opportunities, supporting her family through one of the few industries where her youth and appearance could be converted into meaningful income. The bar industry exists because poverty creates desperation, because island provinces offer almost no legitimate employment opportunities, because Thai society tacitly accepts that young women will migrate to tourist cities and sell various forms of intimacy to foreign men who have money but lack affection. From Namwan's perspective, Mark was a resource to be extracted efficiently before it depleted or before he became suspicious enough to protect himself. The affection she performed was work-exhausting emotional labor that required her to manage his feelings, respond to his needs, maintain the illusion of authentic connection while preventing any genuine attachment that might interfere with her economic objectives. When she robbed him of his remaining savings and disappeared, she was simply concluding a business relationship that had reached its natural endpoint. The real tragedy isn't that Mark was robbed, but that the entire system operates with such efficiency that similar robberies happen constantly, that the victims often don't report them because they're ashamed of their own gullibility, that the industry continues functioning because there's an inexhaustible supply of lonely Western men willing to believe that this time, with this woman, the relationship will be different. For foreign men considering Thailand as a solution to loneliness, Mark's story offers essential lessons. First, we understand that paid companionship cannot transform into authentic relationships simply through extended exposure or increased investment. Second, never give financial control bank account access, credit cards, large sums for family emergencies to partners whose affection exists within commercial framework. Third, recognize that exceptional performance of affection is evidence of professional skill rather than genuine emotion. Fourth, accept that if you're purchasing companionship, you're receiving services rather than building partnership. And any confusion about this distinction will result in painful and expensive education. But the deeper lesson is more uncomfortable. That loneliness is a structural problem in Western societies. That aging men become increasingly invisible and isolated. That Thailand offers temporary relief from this isolation through industries built on economic desperation. That the entire system operates because real solutions to loneliness community, meaningful connection, emotional support are harder to access than commercial alternatives. Mark returned to America not cured of loneliness but educated about the difference between solving loneliness and paying for its temporary relief. He learned that what he sought in Thailand, authentic affection, genuine partnership, emotional connection, couldn't be purchased at any price, that the bar girl trap existed precisely because it offered convincing simulations of these things without delivering their substance. Namwan disappeared into the same system that had produced her, probably working in a different city or different venue, probably identifying new vulnerable foreign men to perform affection for, probably sending money home to Buriram while maintaining the fiction that she hated the work and was only doing it temporarily until a better opportunity appeared. She would continue working until age or circumstance ended her career, probably never feeling guilt about the men she had robbed because from her cultural and economic position, they were wealthy foreigners who had chosen to enter her world, who had ignored obvious warning signs, who had mistaken commercial transaction for romantic relationship, despite having more experience and education and supposedly superior judgment. In Pattaya, the bars continued operating, new women replacing those who aged out or found alternative income, new foreign men arriving daily with hopes and savings and loneliness that made them vulnerable to the same trap that had caught Mark. The mamasan who had sold Mark on Namwan's authenticity continued selling other men on other women, collecting bar fines and commissions, facilitating connections that look like romance but function as resource extraction. The industry continues because loneliness continues, because poverty continues, because the gap between what men need and what they can purchase remains wide enough that confusion between the two remains possible, remains profitable, remains the foundation of an economy where intimacy is rented and hearts are trapped not by bars but by the belief that what you're paying for has become something you can keep. If this story revealed uncomfortable truths about how loneliness creates vulnerability, how hope blinds us to manipulation, how industries emerge to monetize our deepest needs, I invite you to subscribe. There are more stories about the bar girl trap and similar schemes, stories about men who woke up broke and homeless, about women who perform love for survival, about the industries built on our inability to distinguish between what can be purchased and what can only be given freely. Thank you for bearing witness to this difficult truth.